Picture this for a second. You've finally done it. You pulled the trigger.
Mm-hmm.
You are standing on a terrace in Phuket.
Yeah.
The sun's going down, turning the sky, all those ridiculous shades of purple and orange.
The postcard shot.
Exactly. You've got a cold drink in your hand, maybe with a tiny umbrella in it. Why not? And the Andaman Sea is right there. It's the absolute dream. You've bought your slice of paradise.
It is the dream. It is that perfect moment until you check your bank account and realize the number at the bottom is, well, a lot lower than what you'd scribbled down on a napkin.
And that is the record scratch moment we're tackling today. We're looking at the difference between the sticker price and, let's call it, the real price of buying property in Phuket.
Yeah.
Because that listing price you see online, that's almost never the final number.
Rarely is, I think, an understatement. If you go into this blind, just converting the currency and thinking job done, you're looking at a hidden layer of expenses.
Closing costs.
Right, closing friction. And it can add anywhere from, 3 to even 8% on top of that advertised price?
3 to 8%. I mean, on a luxury villa, that's the price of a really nice car just gone.
Yeah.
Into fees you didn't even know existed. That's got to hurt.
It's precisely that pain we want to help you avoid. And that's why we're doing this deep dive. We're not just, speculating or scrolling through old expat forums. We're pulling all of this from a really comprehensive guide by Ocean Worldwide.
Right, and this is important. Credibility really matters here because the Thai property market can feel a bit like the Wild West if you don't have a good guide.
It can.
And Ocean Worldwide isn't some blog. They're a luxury real estate agency that's been on the ground in Phuket since 2004.
That's over 2 decades. They've seen it all. And specifically, we're drawing on the expertise of Sandra O'Neill. She's the director of the agency.
And she's helped literally thousands of families and investors navigate this exact market. So when we talk about these numbers, they're coming from years of seeing where people trip up. So think of this as your financial GPS. Our mission is to guide you through all the confusing acronyms, the government fees, the sneaky banking costs.
All of it.
So that when you get to that signing table, the only surprise is how good the champagne tastes, not how much the transfer fee is.
I like that. Let's make sure the surprises are all celebratory.
Okay, let's get into it. You mentioned that 3 to 8% rule. That's the buffer everyone needs to add to the price tag. So where does all that money actually go? Is it all just...
A big chunk of it is, yeah. A significant portion goes straight to the land office. These are what we call the official costs. And it all starts with the transfer fee.
Transfer fee. Sounds simple enough. I'm transferring ownership, so I pay a fee.
In theory, yes. The standard rate is 2% of the property's appraised value. But here's the first little curveball that catches people.
Okay.
In a lot of Western markets, it's simple. The buyer pays the closing costs, end of story. But in Phuket, who actually pays that 2%?
Yeah.
It's negotiable.
Really? It's not set in stone by the government?
The government just wants the fee paid. They don't really care who writes the check. So the common practice in Phuket, sort of a gentleman's agreement, is to split it 50-50.
So I pay 1%, the seller pays 1%.
That's the baseline. But like you said, in real estate, everything is negotiable.
Right.
If you're buying from a developer, for example, especially in a new project, they might cover the seller's share as an incentive.
Ah, like a little bonus to get the deal done.
Exactly. Sign today and we'll pay the full transfer fee. That's an immediate 1% saving right there.
But on the flip side, a seller could just say, I want my net price, right?
And that's a dangerous phrase if you don't know what it means. It basically shifts the entire tax burden onto you, the buyer.
Okay, so tip number 1. Always clarify who's paying what. Don't just assume it's a 50-50 split.
Never assume. Now, this leads to something I found fascinating in Sandra O'Neill's guide. We have to talk about the seller.
The seller.
Yeah, because their personal history with the property actually changes the tax bill.
How does that work? Most buyers would think, the seller's taxes are their problem, not mine.
You should care because it massively impacts your negotiation leverage. See, there are 2 main taxes a seller might face. One is called specific business tax, or SBT. The other is stamp duty.
Okay, SBT versus stamp duty. Why does this matter to me, the buyer?
It all comes down to tenure. How long has the seller owned the place? If they've owned it for less than 5 years.
The government sees them as a flipper.
Exactly. They're trying to discourage pure speculation. So, if a seller sells within that 5-year window, they get hit with the specific business tax, and it's 3.3% of the sale price.
Wow, 3.3%. It's a huge number.
It's massive. But if they've held the property for longer than 5 years, that SBT just vanishes. Instead, they only have to pay a tiny stamp duty of 0.5%.
Okay, so hold on. We're talking about a difference between a 3.3% tax and a 0.5% tax. That's huge for the seller.
And it's huge for you because a seller who's staring down a 3.3% tax bill is going to be much more rigid on their price. They have less room to move.
Whereas the person who's only paying 0.5%.
They've got a lot more wiggle room. They might be way more open to a lower offer because their exit cost is so much smaller.
That's such a great insight. So before you even make an offer, you shouldn't just ask about the price. You should be asking, so how long have you owned this place?
You're not just making small talk. You're calculating their tax liability to figure out how much you can negotiate. It's about leveling the playing field.
Love that. Okay, one more thing on these official costs. We keep saying appraised value versus market value.
Yeah.
Is there a trap there? Or maybe an opportunity?
A little bit of both, actually. The land office has its own official appraised value for every property, and that's what they use to calculate the taxes.
And I'm guessing that's often different from what I'm actually paying?
In Phuket, it's often lower than the market price, which sounds like good news, right?
Yeah, if the government thinks the condo's worth 100 grand, but I'm paying 150, I want to pay tax on the 100 grand.
And usually that's what happens. It means the tax bill can come in lower than you expected. But, and this is a big, but always budget your closing costs based on the sale price.
The price you're actually paying.
Yes. If the taxes end up being lower because of the appraisal, treat it as a happy accident, a bonus. Don't rely on it.
Better to be pleasantly surprised than frantically trying to wire more money at the last second.
That's the rule.
Yeah.
Always budget for the worst case scenario.
Okay, so that's the government's cut, the official stuff. But then there's the invisible friction, the things that aren't on a government sign. I'm talking lawyers and banks.
Yes. And I want to start with a really strong warning here, one that Ocean Worldwide really emphasizes in their guide.
Laid it on me.
Do not DIY your legal work in Thailand. Just don't.
Oh, come on. I've watched a few courtroom dramas. I can read a contract. How hard can it be?
Can you read a Thai title deed? Can you verify that the condo you're buying is within the foreign ownership quota?
The foreign ownership quota. Okay, remind us what that is.
In any condo building in Thailand, only 49% of the total sellable area can be owned by foreigners. The other 51% must be Thai-owned.
Right.
If you try to buy a unit in a building that's already hit that 49% limit, you literally cannot register it in your name.
So you could pay a deposit, sign a contract, and then find out you can't actually own the thing.
It's a disaster. Buying property there without a lawyer is like trying to build one of those, complex bits of IKEA furniture.
Mm-hmm.
But the instructions are missing,
Right.
half the screws are wrong, and it's all in a language you don't speak.
Okay, point taken. So what does a professional instruction reader, a lawyer, cost in Phuket?
It varies, but for a standard resale condo, you're probably looking at a starting point around 15,000 Thai baht.
And for something more complex, like an off-plan purchase?
Yeah, if the building isn't even finished yet, the contract's way more complicated. You need protection against construction delays and so on. So for that, you're looking at maybe 25,000 to 40,000 baht.
Plus the little admin things, I assume.
Always. Passport translations, notarizing documents. You can throw in another 2,000 to 5,000 baht for that stuff. It sounds small, but it all adds up.
It really does. Okay, let's talk about moving the money. This is where I feel like people get really burned.
Sure.
You can't just Zelle the seller, right?
Definitely not.
Yeah.
If you're a foreigner buying a condo to own in your own name, what's called freehold, you need a very specific document. It's called the FET form.
FET, Foreign Exchange Transaction Form. Why is this one piece of paper so important?
Because without it, the land office will not register the property in your name. Full stop.
Wow.
You have to prove that the money came from outside Thailand, specifically for this purchase. It's basically an anti-money laundering measure.
So I can't just use Thai baht that I happen to have in a local bank account?
Generally, no. And here's the trap. You have to be precise. When you wire the money, the instructions have to be perfect. If you misspell a name, or, and this is the crucial one, if you don't clearly write for the purchase of condo unit X in the transfer details,
The bank won't issue the form.
they might refuse. So you've just transferred this huge sum of money, and because of a typo, you can't actually buy the house.
What a nightmare.
You can fix it, but it means delays, paperwork, chasing banks. And while that's happening, you're exposed to the other invisible cost, exchange rates.
The silent killer of budgets.
Absolutely. We're talking huge sums here. Say you're transferring $300,000. If the currency shifts by just 1% while you're sorting out your FET form, that's $3,000 gone.
Vanished. That's your lawyer's fee and your furniture right there.
Which is why we always recommend looking into specialist currency services. They can often lock in rates and give you much better deals than your high street bank. It can save you a fortune.
That's a great tip. Don't just default to your own bank.
Yeah.
Okay, what about leasehold? A lot of foreigners buy villas on a leasehold basis. Are the costs different?
They are. If you're registering a lease, which is usually for 30 years, there's a registration fee of 1.1% of the total lease value.
So 1% fee plus 0.1% stamp duty.
You got it. It's manageable. But here's the catch people forget about. A lease runs out.
Right.
When you go to renew that lease in 30 years' time, which is standard, you have to pay that registration fee all over again. It's a recurring cost, just on a very long timeline.
It's not one and done like freehold. That's a great long game point.
Right.
So let's fast forward. You paid your taxes, you've got your FET form, lawyer's happy, you get the keys. But you can't just walk in, can you? There are more costs.
Yes, the immediate getting set up costs. The big one is the sinking fund.
Sinking fund. It sounds so ominous, like a fund for when the pool sinks into the ground.
It's actually to prevent that from happening. It's basically a communal savings account for the whole building for major future repairs.
Like a new roof or repainting the whole building.
Exactly. You pay this one-time fee up front, so the building has a war chest for big-ticket items later on.
And this is different from the monthly maintenance fee.
Totally different. This is a one-off capital payment when you take ownership.
So how big of a war chest are we talking?
It's calculated per square meter. A common rate might be something like 800 baht per square meter.
Okay, so let's do the math. If I bought a nice 100 square meter condo.
You need to write a check for 80,000 baht on day one.
That's not pocket change. That's over $2,000 just for the just-in-case fund.
And you have to pay it. It's not optional. Then, of course, you need lights and water.
Right, utility deposits.
Yep. Budget another 5,000 to 10,000 baht to get the electricity and water meters connected in your name.
And furniture, unless you plan on sleeping on that beautiful teak floor.
I wouldn't recommend it. Unless you've bought a fully furnished unit, you need a fit-out budget. For a modest setup in that 100 square meter place sofa, bed, table, you're easily looking at 100,000 to 200,000 baht.
But this feels like another place you can negotiate.
Oh, absolutely. Developers often have furniture packages, and sometimes to get a deal over the line, they'll throw it in for free or give you a credit.
So asking, does this come with a sofa, is actually a pretty important financial question.
You bet it is. If you don't ask, the answer is always no, and you end up spending your own cash.
Okay, so we're finally in. The sofa's there. The sinking fund is paid. But the spending, it doesn't stop, does it? This is the long game, the forever costs.
The main one is CAM fees, common area maintenance.
This is what pays for the security guard at the gate and the person who cleans the pool every morning.
Exactly. And the gym, the gardens, the hallway lights, the elevator, it's a monthly cost, also calculated by square meter, and usually you pay it a year in advance.
Okay, give us the numbers.
For that same 100 square meter condo, you might be looking at 70 to 100 baht per square meter per month.
So that's 7,000 to 10,000 baht a month?
It is.
Wow, that's another $200 to $300 a month just to keep the lights on in the hallway?
It's a significant ongoing bill. And if you're buying as an investment, this is where your yield calculation can really fall apart.
Because you have to subtract these fees.
And unless you're going to fly to Phuket every time a toilet gets clogged, you need a property manager.
And what's their cut going to be?
Typically 10 to 20% of your rental income.
So, if I'm an investor, I see a brochure promising, say, an 8% gross yield. But from that, I have to take out the CAM fees, the 20% management fee, and remember that big sinking fund I paid.
Precisely. This is why those gross yield numbers on marketing materials can be so misleading. You need to calculate your net yield. And once you strip out all those costs, that 8% might look a lot more like 4 or 5%.
That is a massive distinction.
Yeah.
Okay, now I want to talk about something that feels a bit weird. We've just bought the place. Why on earth are we talking about selling it already?
Because you should always know your exit strategy before you even enter. Real estate in Phuket isn't a liquid asset. You can't just click sell on an app. It costs time, and, importantly, it costs money to sell.
The exit tax, you could call it.
In a way, first you've got agent commissions. Here in the West, it might be 1 or 2%. In Phuket, agents typically charge 3 to 5% plus VAT to sell your place.
5%. That's a huge chunk of your equity.
It is. And remember all those transfer fees and taxes we talked about at the very beginning?
The ones we were trying to get the developer to pay for us.
Yes. Well, guess what? When you become the seller, now you're the one on the hook for those. You'll be paying the transfer fee and potentially that big specific business tax.
Oh, right. The 3.3% flipping tax if I sell too soon.
Exactly. Let's just play that out. You buy a villa for $500,000. You think, I'll hold it for 3 years, sell it for a profit. Well, if you sell it within 5 years, you get hit with that 3.3% tax, plus the 5% agent fee, plus part of the transfer fee.
So that's almost 10% of the sale price just gone in friction.
Which means your property has to go up in value by more than 10% just for you to break even.
That is a very sobering reality check. You cannot just flip for a quick buck without doing that math.
You really can't. You have to go in seeing this as a medium to long-term hold or be absolutely sure you're buying at a price that can absorb those exit costs.
This has been incredibly eye-opening. It's not just buy a house, live in a house.
Yeah.
It's a whole ecosystem of fees.
It is, but it's manageable if you're prepared. The people who get into trouble are the ones who stretch their budget to the absolute limit for the purchase price and then have nothing left for the friction.
So let's wrap this up with some practical advice. We've covered a ton of numbers. If I'm a listener, sitting here with my calculator, what's the one safety number I should write down?
The contingency fund. We said 3 to 8% for the known closing costs, but on top of that, you need a buffer for the unexpected. Based on the insights in our source material, a good rule of thumb is to set aside an extra 10 to 15% of your estimated closing costs.
So 10 to 15% of the closing cost, not the whole property price, right?
Correct, of the closing costs. So if you budget, say, $10,000 for all your fees, keep an extra $1,500 on the side. It's the Sleep at Night Fund.
I like that, the Sleep at Night Fund.
It just prevents stress. And knowledge is power here. If you know these fees exist, you can use that. You can negotiate better. You can say to a developer, hey, I know the transfer fee is 2%. I'd like you to cover it.
You can't do that if you don't know it exists. You're negotiating from a position of strength, not ignorance.
And that's the whole point. So you can actually enjoy the property without that financial hangover.
So here's a final thought for you to chew on.
Yeah.
We often buy with our hearts. We fall in love with the view. But ask yourself this. Are you buying for lifestyle or are you buying for investment?
That's the million-dollar question.
It is. Because if it's for investment, have you actually opened up a spreadsheet and calculated the sinking fund and the CAM fees and the exit cost against your rental yield? Or are you just looking at the price and hoping for the best?
Tough question.
It is. And look, if this all sounds a little daunting, just remember you don't have to figure it all out alone. This whole deep dive was based on the expertise of Sandra O'Neill and her team at Ocean Worldwide.
Yeah.
They've been doing this in Phuket since 2004. They know where all these hidden fees are buried.
Metaphorically speaking.
Metaphorically, exactly. If you want to find your dream home or just get professional advice on these costs so you don't get taken for a ride, go check them out. You can find them at oceanwwt.com. That's oceanwwp.com.
It is absolutely worth getting expert advice. It pays for itself in the long run.
100%. Well, that's it for our deep dive into the hidden costs of paradise. Hopefully that dream of a cocktail by a pool is now a little more realistic and a lot more financially secure. Thanks for listening.
Safe investing, everyone.
We'll catch you on the next one.